Just ahead, there's another edition of the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith, Public Affairs Director of the Florida News Network.
And I'm Executive Producer Michael Yaffee.
Michael, today, Sybil St. from the University of Central Florida, a colleague of mine from the Department of Theater. She is a lecturer in the School for Performing Arts, Theater for Social Change. What in the world is that? Theater for social change. Well, she's very good at it, and we're going to find out what things they're talking about and where they're trying to bring young people into this theatrical world of ours. So we'll invite you to pull up a chair, put an ear on the radio. The Florida Roundtable begins following these messages.
If only Jason would have stopped before turning. But he didn't. Actually, he didn't even slow down or look. If he had, he would have seen the woman in the crosswalk. 1 in every 4 traffic fatalities involves a pedestrian, so please stop before turning right on red and always yield for pedestrians. Safety doesn't happen by accident. Alert today, alive tomorrow. A message from the Florida Department of Transportation.
Wow, your flowers are gorgeous. What's your secret?
It's no secret. It's Bare Advanced.
You mean these blue bottles?
Uh-huh. I protect my beauties with all-in-one rose and flower care. It's insect and disease control plus fertilizer.
Really? What's this 12-month tree and shrub protect and feed?
Oh, I use it on my trees. It kills bugs for up to a year, plus it feeds. It's that easy. Hey, where are you going?
To get my own. I want a great yard, too.
Bare Advanced. Get more from the blue bottle. Always read and follow label instructions.
Attention type 2 diabetics. If you or a loved one has taken Invokana, Invokamet, or Invokamet XR or other inhibitors for type 2 diabetes and suffered amputation of the toes, feet, or legs, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. The FDA has warned that Invokana, Invokamet, or Invokamet XR and other inhibitors for type 2 diabetes cause an increased role in amputations of the toes, feet, and legs. If you or a loved one has taken Invokana, Invokamet, or Invokamet XR or other inhibitors for type 2 diabetes and suffered amputation of the toes, feet, or legs, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-474-6417. That's 800-474-6417. Again, 800-474-6417. Call now. This is an advertisement. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. www.injuryhelpdesk.com is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada.
This is the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith, Public Affairs Director of the Florida News Network.
And I'm Executive Producer Michael Yaffee.
Michael, a pleasure to be with you this week. A couple of observations I want to make before we get to our first guest, the news of the day and things of that nature. This one, I don't think, yes, it's something that happened within the last few days here, but does not necessarily date. I believe that what I'm about to tell you speaks to an attitudinal situation in a network newsroom. A close friend of mine who spent many years as the news director and then later as general manager of a television station. As a matter of fact, he started in the Orlando area and was the news director at an NBC television station. Came up through the ranks. They sent him out to be the general manager of a station in California, and then they brought him back to Central Florida as the director of this NBC television station in Central Florida. He is now retired, but he had a posting on Facebook that I found to be tremendously interesting. There was a passenger recently who was accused of being drunk and disorderly on an airplane.
All right.
And the NBC Nightly News made a big deal out of this fellow being drunk on the airplane and people subduing him and getting him off the plane. And this story of a fellow having too much to drink on the plane got an individual stand-up reporter at the airport outside the plane.
Really?
And it went on and on. And this is the former general manager of this NBC television station telling this story, huh?
All right.
Now, At the same time, former astronaut Alan Bean died.
Yep.
Alan Bean was 86 years old. He was the fourth American to walk on the moon, multiple NASA missions around the moon. The desk anchor allotted about 5 seconds to say that former astronaut Alan Bean had died at the age of 86.
Yeah.
And the drunk on the airplane got his own stand-up reporter outside the plane.
Yep.
And I would ask our listeners, what's wrong with this picture?
I think our listeners know what's wrong with that picture.
Gee whiz.
But I mean, that's unfortunately happens a lot in the news business. The controversy sells.
I go back to William Randolph Hearst and
Right.
those days and the old, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yep, yellow journalism.
Gee, has it changed?
I guess not.
Apparently not from the mid to late 1800s till today. As you can see behind me, this great fire, and of course it's 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning and it's dark. You can't see the building. Anyways. Real estate note for you, Michael.
Oh, okay. Hopefully it's some good news.
The oceanfront California estate that President Richard Nixon used as his Western White House is up for sale.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
Former Allegrand pharmaceutical chief Gavin Herbert is putting the 5.5-acre estate in San Clemente on the market for $63.5 million.
Just a little out of my price range. Just a little bit.
Well, 3 years ago, he was asking for $75 million.
Oh, so it's going down.
1926, it was built. The complex named La Casa Pacifica by Nixon has a total of 15,000 square feet of living space. We'll write them a check, and we'll be doing the show from there next week. Speaking of shows, you got a couple of other shows we wanted to let you squeeze in here.
Yes, well, the best way to get a hold of me is you can follow me on Twitter. Just follow me at Beyond Reason R. That's my name because I host a show called Beyond Reason Radio, where I'm the voice of reason in a world that is often beyond reason. And so you can catch out that show anywhere podcasts are available. Go on iHeartRadio as well and search Beyond Reason Radio and check out the podcast there.
And I think you will enjoy what you find. All right, Michael, thank you so much. We're going to be joined by Sybil St. from the University of Central Florida Theater Department, the School of Performing Arts. She's got some interesting things to talk about. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
If you'll stay put, the conversation continues following these messages.
Guilt. To most, it's just a word. But if you hit or worse, kill a pedestrian while driving, guilt becomes your shadow, following you every day for the rest of your life. And let's be honest, you have a lot of life left to live. So please, stop before turning right on red and always yield for pedestrians. Because safety doesn't happen by accident. Alert today, alive tomorrow. A message from the Florida Department of Transportation.
Battling bugs inside and out? Then it's time to get more from Bayer Advanced and Lowe's Home Improvement Stores. Now you can buy Bayer Advanced Complete Brand Insect Killer for soil and turf and get a free bottle of Bayer Advanced Home Pest Plus Germ Killer, a $9 value. Complete works outside on your lawn, eliminating surface insects, including mosquitoes, in 24 hours and soil insects for up to 3 months. While Home Pest Plus Germ Killer handles the bugs inside your home. Lowe's and Bayer Advanced. Get more from the blue bottle. Always read and follow label instruction.
In a world of tiny tomatoes and backyard pests, one man and his better half dig deep to save backyard gardens.
Joni, stand by to upload expert videos.
Already loaded, Tom.
Wow, you're good.
You're not so bad yourself.
Tom and Joni McCubbin star in hisandhersgardening.com. Critics rave.
Tom and Joni, they really grow on you.
2 green thumbs up.
Don't miss hisandhersgardening.com.
Precious rose, you color our world till insects and disease turn it upside down. So we've created Bayer Advanced All-in-One Rose and Flower Care. It's the no-spray formula that works 3 ways, controlling bugs and disease as it feeds for brighter, more vibrant flowers. So count your blessings and stop to smell the scientific advances. Available in easy-to-use liquid and granules. Bayer Advanced. Better science, better results. BayerAdvanced.com. Always read and follow label directions.
We are back. You're listening to the Florida Roundtable, the service of Florida's talk and entertainment networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
And Michael, as promised at this point in the program, we are joined by a colleague of mine from the University of Central Florida. She is in the theater department, and we want to welcome to the Florida Roundtable Sybil St. And Sybil, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Well, I'm delighted to be with you today.
Now,
thank you for having me.
I tell you what, you do some unique things, and probably, we say theater department, but I think we're going to open some eyes here today with our conversation, because you're involved in a lot of things that probably most people don't think about. They think the theater department, and we know they have a big theater department, and maybe some people know the UCF Shakespeare Festival. I was involved in that for years too. But before we get into all that, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and take the first minute or so and tell us a little bit about your background, a little biographical sketch, if you will, your education and how you ended up at UCF.
Sure. Well, I actually have 5 degrees, and they're all in theater in some way, shape, or form. I have graduate degrees in theater for young audiences and in creative writing with an emphasis in stage and screen. And my focus of my work is actually finding the medicine in our stories. And I do that under the umbrella of Theater for Social Change. And I came to UCF actually as part of a partnership between the University of Central Florida's Department of Theater and the Orlando Repertory Theater. And when I arrived here, actually, there was no Orlando Repertory Theater. The theater itself, the building itself, the old Civic Theater, had shut down. The building was condemned, and I oversaw a $2 million renovation and launched their inaugural season and created one of only 6 MFAs in theater for young audiences in the nation. And as part of that curriculum, I inserted a class called Theater for Social Change. And at the time, this was 16 years ago now, maybe a little bit less, I had no idea that one class would change my life and become the focus of my work.
Well, hats off to you, because I'll tell you what, Mike and I go back that far, and I must say, Jeff Revels has been a guest on one of my fine arts programs several times here, and we went through that program and how fortunate the city of Orlando was that a partnership and that UCF stepped in to save that building and take it forward. So. But
very forward thinking of the university.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, so that's your background, and that's how you came into the Orlando area and working with that, and obviously great steps with young people. But your thrust and what interested me, finding medicine in the stories. But let's hear about this Theater for Social Change. That's I think maybe something new to a lot of our listeners.
I think that is true, although when I start talking about it, I think most people may feel that they've had at least a brush with Theater for Social Change. It goes by many names, which is also part of the confusion. Its origin story is as a movement called Theater of the Oppressed, which came out of Brazil and was crafted by a fellow named Augusto Boal, who only died a few years ago. So this is a fairly new movement, if you want to call it that. And the motto of the work is have the courage to be happy. And simply put, it takes theatrical techniques and uses them to explore and hopefully impact in positive ways social and interpersonal change. And that has many faces and many techniques and many ways in, but that's the nutshell version.
When you say different techniques, are you talking about, actual theater productions or something separate from that?
I'm talking about all of that. It can be a play that you pick up that's considered a piece of Theater for Social Change. It can be a play that you co-create with others, and we often call that devised theater. It's collaborative playmaking, and often it uses personal stories as source material. For instance, a few years back, some of my students, under my tutelage, created a show called Breakthrough that used their own personal stories from UCF students to explore the LGBTQ struggle, or battle was the word they used, for the 21st century battle for equality was how they summed it up. And that became a play that they had co-created using these theatrical techniques, and that toured the state, that became the subject of a documentary, and that was a collaboratively created piece of work. So those are two ways in. Another way in are these kind of workshops, and they use a variety of activities. So Forum Theater, for instance, which falls under the umbrella of Theater for Social Change, plays a scene through to a crisis point and then invites the audience to tap in to offer solutions that hopefully avert that crisis point, and that also hopefully help us to make friends. And that's often hard to visualize, but the story I tell is we can do this stuff academically. We can do this to help you work through your roommate's passive-aggressive sticky note issues. We can use this to solve community problems. I have friends that do work in Russia and Palestine. They go where the greatest need is. I myself have lived off the grid in Colombia, working with disenfranchised populations who've been in the middle of drug wars for many years, and the whole community had PTSD. And try to make this brief, but just so you can imagine Forum. We went in, we asked to hear their stories. They co-created with us a small playlet that involved a series of several of their personal stories in the community that then became kind of public domain. And so what we ended up with was a story that was theirs, but public domain, and we performed it for the community. And it began with, these were their issues. It was a father came home at 3 in the morning who was drunk. He banged on the door, let me in, I'm hungry. The wife lets him in. They get in an altercation. He hits her. The oldest son gets involved. He gets hit too and kicked out. He has to quit school, get a job. And the story goes on from there. So we take that, we play it all the way through, and then we play it through again and stop and allow the audience to tap into crisis points and to tap into different characters in the scene to avert the crisis points, hopefully. And I'll never forget the first time we did it, this 8-year-old girl tapped in as the mother. And when the scene restarted again, the dad's like, let me in, I'm hungry. She's like, no, there's no food here, go away, I'm not opening the door at 3 in the morning. And she stopped the whole thing from cascading, and it never would have occurred to me. The beauty of the work is that we don't go in and say, I know how to fix your problems. We go in with you and say, I don't know how to fix your problems, but you probably do. So let's explore what that looks like. The work is about problematizing, the idea that looking at a problem is just as important as solving it, and opening this kind of dialogue. And almost everything I do is couched in this idea of storytelling and story sharing, which builds community, which builds intimacy, which helps us to walk a mile in another's shoes. There's another form that I practice routinely here in Orlando called playback theater. And literally, the troupe has to be very well trained because it's a very highly responsible form of theater. You're holding your audience's tender bits in your hands, so to speak. And they share their stories with us. The audience shares their stories with us in real time, and we play them back for them in ways that we hope honor both teller and story. Playback believes that all of our stories are worthy of being shared. And in this way, we kind of create this community through story sharing, through community building, and in that process, we find the medicine in our stories, because we've all had that experience of having a cathartic moment, even if it's not our story, but through somebody else's story. And you can do this work with a variety of populations. I do it for free on campus with Playback UCF, but we also do things like last year we went out to the state's attorney's office to work with the sex crimes unit. So to provide a safe container for victim advocates, attorneys, prosecutors, detectives, to kind of share their own stories in a place that would help to hopefully help to rehumanize this very difficult profession. They often have to put their own emotions on hold, but they deal with very difficult situations on a daily basis. I'm looking at possibly taking some playback into the prison system as well. So I tend to work with multiple populations and as Gustav Boel said, the man who created the work, anybody can do theater for social change, even actors. So it's a form of theater that was almost not meant. It wasn't meant to be performed. It was meant to be performative and exploratory. And so there's no fourth wall. There's this idea of spectator-actor. So the spectator becomes part of the theatrical experience. And talking about the work is just as important as doing it. So there's always kind of a breakdown chat back at the end of everything that we do, whether I'm in class, whether I'm, working with detectives, or with prisoners or UCF students.
Let me ask you this now, and I was running through my mind going back across the years and through the seasons and all many, many years that I've been involved with theater around the state of Florida and in Central Florida. And folks used to talk about a production, a thoughtful production, and they would say, well, we're pushing the envelope. And it sounds to me like this is what you have done here, where we're at with this Theater for Change and whatnot, is that you have found a way to enlarge and grab hold of this ability to push the envelope and bring it into a work-life situation. Yes.
I don't think of myself as pushing the envelope since I'm really, standing on the shoulders of others, so to speak. This work, I did not create this work. I'm just sharing this work. But certainly in these times where there's less and less intersectionality between people that have differing opinions, to me it becomes more and more crucial that we cultivate an ability to communicate, to walk a mile in another's shoes, to not one-dimensionalize each other, because we're encoded for compassion. I believe that, but we tend to reserve it for our own tribe, so to speak. So I'm in the business of extending the concept of tribe to not just be your own family, your own community, but your own city, your own country, your own world, your own planet, and that includes, the environment as well, and animals.
Sybil, I'll tell you what, we're at that point. We do have to take a pause along the network line here. Let me remind folks that they are listening to the Florida Roundtable. It is a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
Our very special guest this day is Sybil St. She is with the University of Central Florida School of Performing Arts, the Department of Theater, and she specializes in theater for social change. And we have much to explore, so we hope you will stay put. Our conversation continues following these messages.
It'll never happen to me. I'll never need help. That's what every boater thinks. But then one day, you do need help, and you have no way of getting it because you thought having an emergency locator beacon was unnecessary. You're wrong. Emergency locator beacons are effective, affordable, and they save lives. Seriously. If not for you, do it for them.
Learn more about emergency locator beacons at myfwc.com. Brought to you by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission.
If only Jason would have stopped before turning. But he didn't. Actually, he didn't even slow down or look. If he had, he would have seen the woman in the crosswalk. 1 in every 4 traffic fatalities involves a pedestrian, so please stop before turning right on red and always yield for pedestrians. Safety doesn't happen by accident. Alert today, alive tomorrow. A message from the Florida Department of Transportation.
One time he forgot to fuel up the boat. And it wouldn't be the first time he left his tackle box behind. On one trip he even headed out without his lucky hat. And seems he almost always forgets to wear his sunscreen. But he never forgets to wear the one thing that could save his life. Life jackets save lives. Wear it, Florida.
Visit myfwc.com for more information.
Is your yard a glorious utopia? One that deserves protection from the invasion of blackberry? If so, then your passion is our passion. That's why Bayer Advanced has made Brush Killer Plus. It uses a systemic formula that kills blackberry to the root, and it's now available in a new 1.3-gallon ready-to-use pump sprayer, making it even easier to apply. Brush Killer Plus from Bayer Advanced. Your passion is our passion. Visit BayerAdvanced.com. Always read and follow label directions.
Leaving tobacco behind isn't an easy task. In all honesty, it's a very hard thing to do. The good news is, if you want to quit, Tobacco Free Florida offers free help, support, and the tools you'll need to succeed. Area health education centers offer free classes that are run by professionals who know what you're up against. It's comforting to have a face-to-face conversation with a person who knows exactly what you're going through as you begin your quit journey. If you've tried to quit tobacco before, or if you've been avoiding trying to quit, now is the right time for you to succeed. Area health education centers offer free classes that are designed to help you quit and offer free nicotine replacement therapy like patches, lozenges, and gum. Remember, it's free, so you have nothing to lose. There's a quitter in you, and with the help of Tobacco Free Florida's 3 ways to quit, you'll double your chances of success. If you or someone you know needs help quitting tobacco, you can call 1-877-YOU-CAN-NOW or visit us at tobaccofreeflorida.com.
We tend to focus on the material and the temporal and neglect the eternal and relational. But none of us knows the number of days that God has planned for us. Don't put off until tomorrow the really important things you can do today, like getting right with God and getting right with others. God became a man in the person of Jesus to show us how. Start by getting right with God through Jesus. Then show your family how much you love them. If you're married or a parent, surprise them by occasionally coming home early. Tell them you love them. Plan fun things to do with them. Help someone you care about, someone who needs you at the office or in the neighborhood, or maybe someone who needs a friend. Maybe just be someone to listen and hold a hand. Even seek to be right with those who are not for you. It may not be the last day that you live here on earth, but it may become a great day for you and those you care about. This is Bryant Wright, speaking right from my heart.
Visit rightfromtheheart.org. That's rightfromtheheart.org.
From Pensacola to Key West and all points in between, you're listening to the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
Our very special guest this day is Sybil St. She is an associate lecturer at the University of Central Florida School of Performing Arts in the Department of Theater. She specializes in theater for social change. And this is an eye-opening conversation. Sybil, over the years, many people, and a complaint that we hear and concerns from people in theater is the ability to attract young persons into the theater, get them away from the front of the computer screen or the television or their smartphones and whatnot. And obviously, you are greatly involved in that. And it sounds to me this is a marvelous opportunity and an attraction to young people in a theatrical mode.
Absolutely, yes. I am a firm believer that we are communal creatures. And while I think technology is amazing and wondrous, this technology that's designed to connect us also, unfortunately, sometimes isolates us. And I often actually work with overachievers, honor students, grad students, and I make it my business to try to get them out of their desk and out of their heads and into the here and now, even going so far as to integrate mindfulness training, and reflective practice. My classrooms are highly student-centered, highly rooted in active learning. So we're doing the doing, even in my classrooms. We don't just talk about theater, we do theater. I want them to experience it. Basic learning theory tells us that we remember about 10 to 20% of what we hear, but we remember about 90% of what we do. So I'm in the business of getting us to do the doing, so to speak. And I make sure everybody knows each other's names, which often doesn't happen, unfortunately, even in this setting anymore. And that there is a sense of connection. We're willing to take more risks if we feel a little safe, if we feel a little respected, if we feel like that it's okay to make the mistake. The great discoveries happen in the mistakes. This idea of perfection or never making a mistake is an enemy, I believe, of true learning and growth. So even in my classrooms, I'm cultivating this. How do we connect with each other? How do we become present to what is? My techniques actually focus on things like practicing deep listening, But many of the techniques that we use also many of the things that go into making great human beings. The ability to really, listen to comprehend, not listen to respond. If we're responding already in our heads, we stop listening. And that's where most of us are, even me. So it's a lifelong kind of journey and a path to be on. And I believe deep listening, really listening to somebody, is the most sincerest form of respect that you can give. So let's practice those things. Let's allow ourselves to be seen. Let's take off the mask. Let's allow ourselves to be vulnerable. In our culture, the word vulnerable has gotten a bad rap. It means you're weak. But in the theater, vulnerability is we must be vulnerable. You need to be present. You need to be able to be impacted and transactional with your partner or whoever else you're with. And you need to be listening, and you need to be here now. And these are all incredible life skills that the theater can also bring to the table. And they also help to kind of equalize this kind of sense of ego that can go with the arts, so that it becomes not so much about you, but about other. How do I honor other? How do I listen to other? These are skills we can all benefit from these days, regardless of where we are, what culture we're in, what age we are, what our belief system is. And I don't know if I actually addressed what you were asking or what you were alluding to, this idea of disconnecting and from technology and reconnecting with each other. But
well, one thing that might be a good idea then is could you possibly go through like a specific example? So say you're in a class and you have some kids that are, like you said, the honor roll students, but that are always connected on the computer. Specifically, what do you do to get the kids,
Sure.
I'd say kids, young adults involved?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I do is I create really dynamic student-focused classes. Like I teach a course that I created called Creative Processes, Theory and Practice, that really is rooted in self-care. And I've come to believe that self-care is a form of activism in this culture because we glorify busy. But to be more specific, we'll look at three things that I do in one of my classes. I also teach a storytelling class. I teach theater for social change. I teach theater survey, among other things. And so that one of the things I've worked with victim services at UCF to create a bystander activation workshop that they use in conjunction with their Green Dot altruistic training. And it's being offered all over campus now. And literally it physicalizes working through conflict when you see it, what to do. We can distract, we can go in, we can distract the perpetrator, we can go in directly and confront it, or we can delegate to somebody else who may be able to manage the situation better than we. You can tell people this, but when you put them through a Theater for Social Change workshop on it, they get it. They get it in their bones. They're not just talking about it. They're not just hearing about it. They're doing it. They're practicing it. And this work is considered a rehearsal for life. If we can do it here, we can do it out there, is the hope. In just a regular class like Theater Survey, Honors Theater Survey, which is a general population course, it satisfies the humanities credit, so we get people from all different disciplines, and that's the point. One of the things that I love about working with the Honors College is we get so many different personalities and majors and worldviews. So instead of just, I'm going to stand up here and lecture to you about the history of theater, we create events that I call happenings, which are inspired from the 60s, basically. And so they're given a historical topic that is their group's job to cover and to kind of co-teach to their fellow students. But instead of just getting up there with a PowerPoint and some index cards and everybody's bored to tears and doesn't really learn anything, they're charged with teaching 25 morsels of knowledge, is exactly how I phrase it, and engaging their colleagues. So how do we get people up on their feet? Do we time travel? Do we bring in cupcakes? Do we play a Kahoot? What are the ways that we can physicalize learning this activity, learning this information, and then we do an assessment period on that. And each group's charged with assessing the learning of their students as well. So that's kind of a look at active learning, student-centered, doing the doing. Another thing we do in that class is, obviously we go to plays, we talk about plays, we write about plays, we look at the history of theater. What does a playwright do? What does an actor do? And I Skype in my Broadway friends who have won Tonys, who are both in acting, producing, writing, all of those things. And so they get to actually meet people at the highest level of the profession, at least in this country. And their kind of capstone project is what I call an open scene. Everybody in the class is put into duets, so you have a partner. And everybody let's say you have 9 teams in one class, 9 partners. But they all have the same script, and it's called an open scene or a contentless script. So it means nothing. And the dialogue is literally like, why are you doing this? It's the best thing. Go on, I will. Like there's like 9 pieces of dialogue. None of it means anything. They're each given their own set of dialogue, but everyone has the same dialogue is what I need for you to understand. And then they're charged with turning that into a 5-minute scene that has character development, character relationship, given circumstances, who, what, where, why, when. We look at story structure, why this night, why this now, motivation, objectives, all the things that an actor might need to learn. Even though this is not an acting class, they're charged with taking these 9 lines of dialogue, creating an entire playlet out of it with projections and music and costumes and a set design, and sharing that with the class as part of a capstone project for what we've learned. So that's kind of what an active learning, student-centered classroom looks like to me, anyway.
And that, what I'm hearing is you're really bringing this work-life balance into a classroom and bringing it home to them on a very personal basis. Yes,
I've learned, unfortunately through my own illness, that I cannot serve from an empty vessel. And I want to serve. And I realize I can only give my students what I have in me. So it is up to me to cultivate my best version of me so that I can share that with them. And I try to share that philosophy with them, too. You know, I read in a medical journal somewhere that sleep is good for you. Like I say things like that to them. You need to eat. You need to sleep. You know, the creative brain actually needs idle time. This constantly being plugged in is not good for our creativity, I don't think. And the research is backing me up on that one. So how do we practice self-care and still get good grades? You know, why does it have to be one or the other? As a former honor student myself, I understand that type A drive, but it was at my own expense.
Yeah, Sybil, I'll tell you what, we're at that point where we're going to have to take another break along our network line here, so we'll let you come back and finish up that thought in a moment. But I must remind folks that they are listening to the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
Our very special guest this day is Sybil St. We'll continue our conversation following these messages.
The concept of forgiveness is very simple. Forgiveness is letting go of your anger, bitterness, sense of justice, and desire for revenge. It's giving the issue to God and letting Him deal with it. Just let it go. Unfortunately, once emotions get involved, everything becomes more difficult. You see, our instinct is to trust ourselves rather than God. We get afraid that if we give control to God, He might not do what we want done. We want to be sure the bad guys get their due. Knowing that we would struggle with forgiveness, the Lord's Prayer makes it clear. If you want the forgiveness of God, you must be willing to forgive others. And here's the key. Sometimes I can't forgive others in my own strength. I have to confess to God and ask Him to help me forgive others through His power. He always does. We all need forgiveness. Make the choice to forgive others, just like Christ forgives you.
Visit rightfromtheheart.org and click Devotions to read the daily devotion and send to a friend.
Right now, Wet and Forget Outdoor is cleaning that black and green stuff off all my outdoor surfaces. With Wet and Forget Outdoor, you just spray it on, and every time it rains, it cleans. Moss, mold, mildew, and algae don't stand a chance on my siding, deck, and pavers. Even the fabric on my patio umbrella. Outdoor cleaning is as easy as Wet and Forget. Make cleaning easier. Pick up Wet and Forget Outdoor today at participating Ace, Do It Best, True Value, or visit wetandforget.com for a store near you.
Years after her husband first arrived in Belle Glade, Florida from Haiti, Stephanie finally had her family together again. But her husband and daughter became disabled. So now, Stephanie supports them, working brutal 15-hour days in the farm fields. At the Glades Initiative, we connect Stephanie and others with food and social services. Help us help them have decent lives together. Visit GladesInitiative.org.
We are back. You're listening to the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
Our very special guest this day is Sybil St. She is an associate lecturer at the University of Central Florida School for Performing Arts, the Department of Theater. And Sybil, we know that you're a very busy lady, and we want to say thank you for spending all of this time with us this day. It has been quite an eye-opening conversation, especially for me. And I wanted to let you go back. We were talking about some things there as we went into that last break, and I wanted to let you go ahead and finish your thoughts on that.
Well, really, the idea is let's do the doing. I believe that education can be fun. It can be active. I think that as an artist myself, that a lot of creativity in any field is rooted in play, is rooted in interaction, and is rooted in reflection, being highly reflective and kind of present to what is. So this idea that the creative brain needs idle time, this idea that we kind of take from our young people academically, but we never really teach them how to give back to themselves. And so I'm trying to do some of that as well. And again, this idea of community building and looking for the medicine in our stories. It's the tie that binds for me. It shows up in all of my classes, whether it's storytelling or acting or theater for social change or creative processes, theory and practice. To me, my ideologies remain consistent, and which also circles around to this idea of how do we maybe raise consciousness or work on the whole person instead of just the student. If we can help people become better versions of themselves, not just better students or better at making grades or better at graduating, we should be doing that, if you ask me. Let's look at the whole student. Let's treat the holistic situation here. Separating people out and saying you're just a student, for some is necessary. If you've got a 600-seat lecture, there's not a lot you can do about that. But I'm lucky enough to be in a situation where I have 20 to 40 people in a class, and so I'm able to learn names and able to create connections. And I find that if they trust you, they'll follow you many places where they would resist before, and if they feel respected. So I'm really interested in educating the whole person. And in doing so, I continue to educate myself, and they continue to educate me. I learn from them every day.
So what kind of response do you get from the students on your sort of unorthodox teaching style? Is it mostly positive?
Yeah, sure. There's always that disgruntled student who maybe doesn't have nice things to say. But by and large, yeah, I get a lot of really beautiful feedback, actually. My Theater for Social Change class is unilaterally reviewed by the students every semester as the one class you need to take at UCF before you graduate. Others talk about how they didn't understand that, this idea of peace building beginning from within, or this idea of self-care, how important it is to care about yourself and to care for yourself so that you can give back and be a valuable and contributing member of society. This idea that, I am in some way responsible for what goes on around me, that we can no longer afford to be bystanders, in other words. So, yes, I would like to believe, and I see in their feedback that is, but they're picking up what I'm putting down. And I know that they talk to each other because they come back into my classes and they're like, oh, you're taking this, go take that class. Oh, you'll love that class. And sometimes it's like, yes, take the eccentric lady, take the weird theater chick. And I don't care how they get there or what they say to each other as long as they come and get it. So, and I feel incredibly blessed, honestly, to be able to do this work with these populations, and to connect this idea of education to community engagement, to process-centered drama, which is really a lot of what I do. We have this idea of product theater-centered drama where you go see a show and you sit down and you watch it. What I do is more process-centered drama, so you tend to take the theatrical experience on yourself and you are somehow engaged in it.
I think this is a marvelous. I'm very impressed here, and I'm bound and determined. I've got to ask this. As you look at your situation, and you're obviously doing some incredible things, if you had a wish list, and you're doing a great job of bringing young people in and introducing them to theatrical being, but on your wish list, what would be at the top of that? Something, if you had to go into the department now and say, well, I have this class that I want to create and do, where would we go?
Honestly, my dream that I'm working on now is to create a graduate program in what is called normally applied theater, which is another term for theater for social change. Usually in academia, we use the word applied theater, which is we're using theater practically, we're applying it. So my ideal is to create a graduate program in theater for social change at the University of Central Florida. We would be one of 3 programs in the nation. We would complete the triangle because one program's in New York and one's in California. And I'm not the only one doing this work at UCF. We have the staff, we have the faculty, we have the interest. And I've already created one graduate program for UCF, so why not 2? But I have to convince the powers that be.
Well, yes, that is how it works. I sometimes have said to students, we do so many different things that if they want to create one, why bring us the ideas and we'll take it into the department and see if we can make it fly, But that is what I really like is this notion of broadening and the depth that you're taking to the young people and the students and creating people who are going to be dedicated to these things for the rest of their lives and pass it along to their children. And I believe that's where I hear you going with these things.
Yes, and I believe that we are, that creativity is encoded in our DNA no matter what profession we're doing, and that you can artfully change a diaper and take out the garbage and be in relationship to others. So it doesn't matter to me what your discipline is. There's creativity in everything, and we're encoded for it, and we tend to be happiest and healthiest when we're expressing ourselves creatively and in communal situations with others as well.
Well, Sybil, I want to thank you for all of your time this day. You're doing some marvelous things out there at the University of Central Florida in the Department of Theater. And we would like to invite you to come back and do this again with us sometime. I think we just scratched the surface here. So
well, I would love that.
We would need to do this again. Well, Sybil St. Clair, Associate Lecturer, University of Central Florida Performing Arts, the Department of Theater. Our guest this week on the Florida Roundtable. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
And Michael and I will be back with a brief closing thought following these messages.
Want to fly somewhere? Looking for cheap flights or cheap tickets? Then call. That's right. Call the low-cost airline travel hotline now for prices so low we can't publish them anywhere. Low Cost Airlines has all kinds of cheap travel deals. Fly domestically and save up to 75%. You can even fly internationally and save even more. Yes, fly anywhere in the world and save a lot of money on your plane tickets. We'll even save you money with cheap travel deals on hotels, rental cars, even complete travel packages. So don't book your tickets until you call us first for the absolute cheapest prices on U.S. and international airline tickets and hotels. Call right now for prices so low they can't be published. Travel experts are here 24/7 to help. 800-754-4531. 800-754-4531. 800-754-4531. That's 800-754-4531.
Florida has over 2,000 miles of shoreline, over 4,000 square miles of lakes, and over 11,000 miles of rivers, streams, and waterways. Which means no matter how big your boat, how bright your life jacket, how loud you shout, finding you in the case of an emergency is going to be really difficult. Unless you have an emergency locator beacon. Odds are you'll never need it. But the odds for you are tremendously better if you ever do.
Learn more about emergency locator beacons at myfwc.com. Brought to you by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission.
Wow, your flowers are gorgeous. What's your secret?
It's no secret. It's Bare Advanced.
You mean these blue bottles?
Uh-huh. I protect my beauties with all-in-one rose and flower care. It's insect and disease control plus fertilizer.
Really? What's this 12-month tree and shrub protect and feed?
Oh, I use it on my trees. It kills bugs for up to a year, plus it feeds. It's that easy. Hey, where are you going?
To get my own. I want a great yard, too.
Bayer Advanced. Get more from the blue bottle. Always read and follow label instructions.
In a world of tiny tomatoes and backyard pests, one man and his better half dig deep to save backyard gardens.
Joni, stand by to upload expert videos.
Already loaded, Tom.
Wow, you're good.
You're not so bad yourself.
Tom and Joni McCubbin star in hisandhersgardening.com. Critics rave.
Tom and Joni, they really grow on you.
2 green thumbs up.
Don't miss hisandhersgardening.com.
Employ Florida offers resources and services to help you find employment.
Hi, Gary here. Employ Florida helped me improve my interview skills, plus write a great resume. I attended networking events with many employers and other industry professionals just like me. With the workshops and training found at employflorida.com, I was able to land a great job in my field.
Job resources, real results, hired. EmployFlorida.com. That's EmployFlorida.com.
We are back. You're listening to the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
Michael, I enjoyed that conversation with Sybil St. from the Theater Department of UCF. It was an eye-opener for me because I guess I belong to that group of people that wonders, what will become of American theater. Of course, the great classics.
You're a big fan of theater.
I am. And many days, evenings, matinees, whatever, you go to the theater, and most of the audience is over 50.
Yeah. So we're talking live theater, not movie theaters, obviously.
Yeah. And you say to yourself, well, what is going to become of it? There's a great history to theater, and obviously we like to believe that there is a future as well. And people like Sybil St. are doing something about it, actively drawing people in. I made the allusion to pushing the envelope, and whatnot. They've jumped into the envelope, besides pushing it.
Yeah.
But it's a whole new way, and I feel very good about the things that she was talking about in creating interest in this kind of thing amongst young people.
I can tell you're very passionate about this, Reagan.
Well, I
always hear about some show you've went to at the theater, so...
I think it was I sometimes offer extra credit when there is a production that is relative, and I love the students who will come back to me and say, gee, it was almost like watching television, only they were right there in your lap.
Well, yes.
Oh, I would go and do that again,
Nice.
So we know we reached them. Well, we say thank you for your time this day. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Michael Yaffee.
We'll see you again next week with another edition of the Florida Roundtable.
You've been listening to the Florida Roundtable, a news and public affairs presentation of the Florida News Network. The views and opinions expressed during this show are solely those of the participants and not necessarily those of this station's management, ownership, or sponsors. Please email your comments to reagansmith@fnnonline.net.